Because I really
Still interested.
Yeah. But without the sign on it?
whether they watch it or not.
Good evening, it's 7 o'clock by that clock on the wall, I think. I'm going to call together the work session, an update on the new City Hall project. Nancy, are you going first, or we need Melanie? All right.
I'm on first. I'm going to hold this like this. Hopefully it works. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all again. I have a short amount of time here tonight. The purpose is to give you an update on where we are in the design process for the City Hall project. We have been meeting on a regular basis with a group of people that includes the department heads for each department that will be housed in the building, and going through kind of a design and review process. We have met several times. We are about halfway through schematic design, which is very early in the design process, but we wanted to share with you where we are today and the direction that we're going. So you all have hard copies in front of you. Sorry for the rest of you that can't see the front of the boards, but these people are more important.
Not really.
So we are, for today.
Who's standing behind those posters? I'll tell you in a minute.
Yeah, they're hiding back there.
Look if you guys want, it doesn't matter.
So I want to walk you through briefly where we are and the direction that we're going. We have some 3D views, three-dimensional views of the building as it is today. We are building this in a building information management system, BIM, you may have heard of. The product is called Revit. So as we are drawing floor plans, it's all being built three-dimensionally. So we can at any time get views, both interior and exterior, of what we are building in 3 dimensions here. So we have the exterior. The focal point is the curved kind of rotunda on the corner that addresses both street fronts. That's really the focal point of the building and where we're focusing a lot of our design energies right now. Then we have 2 wings of the building that we really haven't gotten into the details and finessing of the elevations yet. Those are more kind of massing for you to see. So we have a large volume on the corner, and I'll walk through the plan so you can see what it is, but we want to be transparent. You can kind of see there's a tree in the middle of there. Whether that's a real tree or a sculptural tree, we want to reflect the tree city. We're showing that there is an opportunity to do something really nice in the center of that rotunda. And there is public access here from the street side into that rotunda. There's also public access. This other view is from the parking lot side that brings you up to the middle level of the building. We have 3 levels in the building. What we're trying to represent here is not necessarily specific materials and colors, but the fact that we're looking at kind of 2 different colorations or materials to kind of set off the top floor and to kind of deal with the scale of the building. If it was all one thing, it may look a little too overpowering, so it's a way to deal with the scale. This other vertical element here on the left-hand side is a stairway within the building that connects the staff offices on each of the 3 floors. So that is an element that we can express on the outside of the building and give some more character to it. So that is in development. I'll walk you briefly through the floor plans. This, what we're calling the main level plan, is the parking level, the entrance from the parking lot. There really is no front or back to this building. We have 2 fronts. So when one enters from the parking lot, there is an entry vestibule and then a public lobby with a view to this, what we're calling the rotunda in the corner. At the lower level, you enter into the rotunda. From the upper level, you enter, you can see down into the rotunda, and we have a stairwell that gets you from the ground floor to the main floor to the upper floor here. On each floor in this public lobby, we have public restrooms. At this level, we can look into the council chambers, but you are 1 story above. So the council chambers right now is a 2-story volume that you enter the room from the lower level, but on this parking level, you can actually, there'll be windows here so you can see into that space and get a sense of what's going on. Right off of the main public lobby, on each floor, is a shared conference room. We have these scattered throughout. Some of them are in quote-unquote staff spaces. This is accessed right off of the public lobby. So it's a great place when the departments are having meeting with someone from the public. They don't have to traipse through all their offices. They can meet out here. On this level, we also have the civil service office, which is right next to this conference room, so they can utilize it for meetings and testing and things like that. Then we have the wing to the right, to the east, that on all 3 floors is primarily staff department areas. On this main floor, we have budget and finance and utility billing, so that people can come in, go into this department, have all of the counters there for utility billing and for tax assistance. We also have right outside the main entry a drop box. So there is a place outside the building for people to drop the utility bills, and then the staff can access them from inside. So we have the counter area, lots of workstations behind to work with the counter area, and then beyond that we have the various offices. We also have a small conference room that's accessed off of that department lobby that the public can access, so the staff can have meetings with the public, again, without them going back through all the offices. Back in this wing of the building, again, we have a stairwell for staff circulation that links through all the floors. We have staff restrooms that stack on each floor, so the plumbing all stacks and occurs on every floor. In this case, we have on 2 of the levels, we have a conference room in this outside corner. This is again within the staff area. In this case, it's within finance. They have specific needs for a second conference room, especially when the auditors come in, a place for them to have a home base. So that's kind of designated for that, but when the auditors aren't there, it's for use by anybody. We have a file room for files that need to be immediately adjacent to the offices. We actually have an unassigned space we're calling a future office. So we have space for future growth within this department. If we go down to the lower level, the other public entrance off of the street side, you would enter into the rotunda, which is a 2-story volume, again with some feature in the center, whether it be a tree or a sculpture or what have you. We have public restrooms immediately off of that rotunda. We've had several discussions about all of the events that take place in downtown Kent, and it would be great to offer another set of restrooms for use during those events. So this rotunda is designed so that it can be locked off, so people can just access the rotunda, access those restrooms, and not get into the rest of the building, but we can have that available for those times when you need those extra restrooms. Then you have access here into the public lobby and then into council chambers at this level. Adjacent to council chambers, right off of the dais, is a small council office that each council person can use for their own purposes. A restroom, so that you don't have to leave council chambers completely if you need to use the restroom. And then we're calling it a shared conference room. This is kind of the executive session conference room, but we do have a door right off of the public lobby so that it can be used again as a shared conference room for the rest of the building at times when council is not using it. There's kind of a ramp system there because all of this area back here is on the same level as the dais. We've raised it just 8 inches. It gives just a slight raise to that, and then all of this area is accessed off of that raised portion. There is a ramp up on one side to the dais to make sure we're handicap accessible. There's stairs on the other side. This wing of space that we're calling kind of the department wing has a lot of shared functions to all the departments. We have long-term file storage. We have a shared workroom where we can have the postage machine and the mail sorter and things that all departments use, as well as additional copiers and layout space and things like that all departments can use. Again, we have the staff restrooms. We have a staff break room we have another shared conference room. This is located adjacent to the public lobby. It's in the staff space, but if you need another conference room and they're all being used and you have public that you want to have a meeting with, this is easily accessible from the public lobby, again, without traipsing people through all the areas. And then we have support space here for mechanical and janitor and housekeeping and things like that. Realize this bottom side of the lower level is underground. We're working with the grades so that we can get some high windows on this other side. So we're trying to put the people on the side where we have windows and the other functions on the side where we don't have windows. Then finally, we have a third floor. I'll put this over here if it'll fit. We have a third floor. Again, the public stair comes up to another public lobby, public restrooms, the elevator, this same shared conference room. We have, was that me? Uh-oh, no, it works.
It works, okay.
We have another future office space undesignated for some growth. In this floor, the rotunda is utilized by the city manager. So there's 2 stories of volume of the rotunda. On the 3rd floor of the volume are actually the city manager, assistant city manager, a conference room, and a space for the economic development director when that person needs to spend the day or half a day in this facility. Sorry. This kind of department lobby is connected to the law department. Law director, assistant law director, admin space for interns, what have you. And they work together and they share administrative support, so that's why they're next to each other. Then down within the staff corridor, clerk of council and mayor, and HR director and the HR support. Then we have our staff restrooms again that are stacked, and at the end, again, we have a conference room. We have a shared workroom for this floor, so all 4 of these department functions have a place for copier, layout space, all that kind of stuff that they need over here, and another room for files that are needed for these departments on a daily basis. So that's kind of the walk through the building as we have it now. Again, we've been working with the department heads to ensure that we're meeting their needs, and we're continuing to develop this along.
Okay, Nancy, you want to take questions up till now before you go further? John, you
That's
had a
all I was gonna
question?
do. That's all I was going to do. So I also gave you in your packets the detailed space program, just so you have it. I don't intend to go through all of that, but that just itemizes out the square footages for each of the individual spaces, so you can, if you want to read that at your leisure, you can do that.
John, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. On the rotundo between the ground level and the 3rd floor, is that all open up through there, or is that closed off between the 2nd and the 3rd?
It is open for the first 2 levels here, and you can kind of see, some windows from the offices into that. Then there is a floor, and the 3rd floor is office space.
It's totally closed from the first
Yes,
floors?
yes.
Yeah. It's just too bad that the corner wasn't the other corner, because energy-wise, it's not the best situation. Now, I'm going to try not to critique a few things, but a few things that I was looking at, and maybe I'm wrong, on the rotunda, so it looks like you're going to get a lot of sun in the morning, late afternoon, and you're going to have to deal with the heat from that. All the windows on the north side, and I would assume you're putting three glazed windows in.
Yeah, we'll use the highest, well,
Yeah,
either double
Probably-
or triple, depending on economy of,
probably won't be affected as much by the heat loss because it's a north side with no heat gain. And that's a little concern, but not a big one. The concern that I'm seeing is that on the south side, which gets sun all the time, you're going to have a heat problem in the daytime. I don't see any overhanging enough to shade even the 3rd floor. You know, when your sun is the highest, and then in the winter time or in the fall, you're coming in directly in those windows, so you're having a lot of air conditioning costs.
right. No, we are considering that. It's hard to see in this rendering. Each of these bands that goes around are a shading device. that is a pre-manufactured product. I've actually given that information to Melanie. So we have a shading device there. On the council chambers windows here, we have, right now we're showing vertical fins. We're actually looking at setting these back so we can have vertical and horizontal fins so that we can shade that. We want to have the expression of what's happening inside, and we want to have light coming in, but we are very concerned as well about the orientation of that and the solar heat gain. So we are looking at a variety of shading devices, especially on the rotunda and on this other west side of the building, and we'll do that on the south too, to counteract that.
Because on the rotunda, even without windows, if you go down to the service building down Overhaul Road and ask any of them what it feels like between the first and second floor and the rush of the heat coming up the stairs, it's an issue there. And you add glass to that, and you know, you're gonna have some issues with it. It's just too bad that whole building couldn't be turned around though, but we can't turn the block around, so.
Not
Those
today.
are my only concerns.
All right,
John.
thank you.
Roger, you're next then, Heidi.
First of all, I like the rendition in terms of how the spatial looks. I mean, that I think blends nicely with, I think I coined the term urban chic. So it looks urban chic. It looks like part of what it should be about. I'm curious about, only because I'm an old school guy with flat roofs, why isn't there any consideration? Because flat roofs invariably have problems with leakage and everything. Was there any consideration given to changing that roof so that they aren't flat? That'd be the first question. The second question is that if it wasn't flat, that might facilitate, I know Heidi's interested in solar panels, everyone, you know, looking at some of those things. So is it not cost effective to look at a little different roof line?
Well, we've talked about that a lot, and the mayor has brought that up, and we're trying to do some modeling to see what that really looks like. Part of the issue is we have mechanical systems that need flat roofs to go on. So while we might not need all of these flat roofs, we do need certain flat roofs. So that's one thing that we're taking into consideration, and, you know, views from the street, making sure those things are screened. We can also do solar panels on flat roofs, so we still have the opportunity to do that. We're trying to look at the image and aesthetic of putting a pitched roof on part of this and how that changes the kind of municipal feel of the building. So we have received that comments. We're starting to look at it. I'm just not ready to show it to you today.
I love the look of flat roofs. The problem is that
Yeah,
invariably,
Leaks.
I was spending
Leaks.
tons
I
of
know.
money to
Yeah.
nice little roofs from leaking.
Right.
It's just-
Yep.
Situation in the police department right now,
right.
leaking,
A new one?
like Tara's office. Are you done, Roger?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Heidi,
Roger.
then Tracy.
Okay, well, I think a pitch roof too, I think it would actually take away from this kind of, besides the rotunda, it looks pretty institutional and blockish. So it would be nice to figure out some angles, maybe even awnings or something that would fit in with kind of like an older city and yet a modern building combined. That wasn't what I was going to talk about, but yeah, I was kind of hoping for something visible as far as solar panels were concerned. I was going to ask you about the lower level plan.
Yes.
And it seems to me like there's a potential for us to reconfigure this as necessary. Say, if we should suddenly need the health department to move in, it seems to me that there may be enough space to put something like that in this building. Because we were talking about creating a structure that would be flexible and that we could grow into a little bit more without a lot of wasted space. I mean,
There are, and we've been considering that, there are opportunities. We're utilizing, you know, extra space where we have it. One of the potentials for that, you know, we have this long-term file storage. You could go off-site with that, and then you have a lot of space here that you can work with. Depending on whatever department you may want to grow, it depends on how much space they need. Particularly the health department, we did go over and look at the health department. They need a fair amount of space, and they have different access requirements. So that might be more challenging, but certainly growth in any other departments, I think we have flexibility within this plan to shift people around. Now, that being said, we don't have a ton of, we're trying to not have a ton of extra space because you got to pay for that.
Right.
So we're programming per the functions that we need with a little bit of elbow room. But there is some capacity, again, it's for long-term file storage off-site that can open up some space for you.
With what Heidi said on the third floor, that roof, the roof area,
Yeah.
that got potential to be built on something.
Right, this has potential to be built out.
So that's-
We have
that's the
talked about with the group, do we build that out now just as empty shell space? It's a budget issue. So what we can do is make sure that we structure this roof so that you could have a floor on top of it in the future. The reality of doing that doesn't always happen, but, sorry,
Can you hand it to me for a second?
oh.
Here you go,
Your turn's over.
Nancy. Nancy.
He called on himself, huh? Can I
All
ask
right.
one more question about that?
Well, hurry up.
So the
We're running
roof,
out of time.
the roof
You got 2 minutes.
area, could
John's
that
got a
also
question,
become
yeah.
an outdoor space,
Exactly, yeah.
like,
All right, I'm
for
trading.
people to go?
Yeah, that could be, we've talked about that too. Could that be
Garden or-
accessible roof deck, green roof, patio, what have you, barbecue, who knows what.
John, you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make some comments on the look of it. I think the inside looks really nice and works really well. On the outside, I kind of agree with Ms. Schaefer that it looks very institutional. I mean, what we have right now over there used to be the city hall, and it looks very intimidating and very fortress-like, and this tends to have the same sort of feel to it. We kind of want,
compare this to
The
that.
rotunda, though.
the rotunda's nice, but it seems to be, we want something that's inviting and friendly, and the one flat panel here, this looks just like what we have there already. This looks a lot like a school, I guess
Okay.
typical school, if there's some way to make it a friendly or more inviting
Great,
type of a look, because this is what you're going to see when you come into town from
Yep.
59, this is what you're going to see right here.
absolutely,
And that's,
yeah,
it looks kind of like a citadel to me right now.
okay. Those are great comments, thank you.
Further, Tracy?
Nope, I'm done.
John?
Well, I don't like much of anything, but I like the building, I think it looks nice. Wouldn't you agree that even with the flat roof, that you could put solar arrays that are, with the incident angle that we have to the sun now, that are not intrusive?
Yes,
They wouldn't be distracting from the building, and they would still have a minor visibility to them. And then on the second point, the flat roofs that everybody's talking about that leak, would you agree that today's flat roofs are much more superior and have lifespans from 30 to 50 years if you use the proper materials?
yeah, they do, but there's,
Over to the police station.
in any building, the most vulnerable part is the building envelope. The most vulnerable part of the building envelope is the roof. So it's always tricky, you have to design it right, you have to build it right, you have to maintain it right. So we just need to make sure that we take extra care in all of those
Extra
3
thick
components.
rubber or ceramic?
All right,
Ceramic.
Garrett, and then we're gonna wrap this
The
up.
rotunda, is that basically centered on the rotunda across the street? Or,
David, you reading that? Smithers?
It's the rotunda across, I haven't checked to see where we are in line with that. The
Architecturally,
rotunda
it doesn't
across the
matter.
street is set back off of the corner a little bit more, and actually, I always have stuff on the back of these boards. Yeah, here's the, across the way, and it's more of just a curved corner.
yeah,
It doesn't
okay.
project out. So it harkens to that. We don't really want to mimic that,
right.
so we're being very careful.
I just was
How we
curious
treat
how
it.
they would line up, but you're
Right.
right, that's more of a curvature than not. But,
Right.
My last comment, that would be the backside from the parking view, the front looks great, you know, as the people say, that's for your neighbors out front, but your backyard's for you. The back's gonna have to be more inviting, because 90% of the people are
absolutely.
gonna come in the backside, so.
Yes, absolutely. Work in progress.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
No further questions. I got one from the administration. This is the people of Kent's building. We're going to schedule finance, how to pay for this soon.
Right.
And also go out to the public and see what the public likes about this.
Yes, to both of those.
So it's something we have to start thinking about.
Yes, and we mentioned a little bit about that during our capital project review meeting this week, in terms of how to reflect the financing. Right now, we're just going to show the need. We're not going to make any assumptions in terms of which strategy you're going to prefer. We're still working with the 5.7,
Working on it.
somewhere in that, and we've got so much, so, you know, it's sort of 4 million or so that we can either finance, partially finance, different ways that we can wrestle with that. So yes, once you kind of conclude all the comments and we really got a decent idea of what the look is going to be, she can cost that out with much more clarity. So that conversation, in my mind, will largely be driven at the end of that process. But as far as public meetings, we talked about, obviously, these are public meetings, but we still want to host 1 or 2 kind of specialized, just come talk to us meetings with the public, and a kind of a open house to give us their input. So I don't know if we don't think we've scheduled anything yet.
No, I think we're getting close. The goal was to have it developed far enough that council and the department heads are happy with where we are. You don't want to share something out in the public that you're not happy with, but early enough that public input can be addressed in the project. So we're very close to that. So that's kind of our next step, is to see when we can get some of those on schedule, how best to do that. We've done it a million different ways, so you know, we anticipate kind of a public presentation and then feedback sessions where we listen and document what people have to say.
Okay, thank you, Nick. John, we're out of time. Go ahead.
To address Tracy's concern, we could always throw that to, leave the rotunda and throw that to a Palazian design with the nice arched windows in that.
That might be interesting.
It'd give you more of that
All right.
homey look.
Nancy, thank you.
Thank you.
Melanie, thank you. It's starting to look positive.
Like here and here.
So, I'm going to call order the public hearing, the Cape Capper. I couldn't see Bridget because all the prints in front of me. Bridget,
We need roll call.
call.
We need roll call.
Wait, we got to do the roll call.
Yep. Mr. Amrhein.
Here.
Mr. DeLeone.
Here,
Mr. Ferrara.
Here.
Mr. Kuhar. Ms. Rosenberg.
Here.
Ms. Shaffer. Here. Mr. Sidoti.
Here.
Mr. Turner.
Here.
And Ms. Wallach.
Okay, now it's yours, Bridget.
This is the second of 2 required public hearings. The city has completed its annual performance report for its 2017 CDBG program period. The city expended $580,215 on programs and projects that support low to moderate income households in the community. Those funds leveraged an additional $387,000 in expenditures. The reporting results for the period August 1st, 2017 to July 31st, 2018 include 10 households were provided with funding for owner-occupied housing rehabilitation. 113 homeless persons received emergency shelter and essential supportive services at Miller House and the Domestic Violence Homeless Shelter. CDBG funds were also used to support neighborhood policing efforts in low to moderate income areas of the community. A small portion was used as an allocation for the design work on the hike and bike trail near Brady's Leap. The largest expenditure was for the reconstruction of Cedar Street, which included street paving, installation of replacement water lines, sewer lines, curbs, gutters, and sidewalk. And 1 low to moderate income resident received small business development training services through our support of the Small Business Development Center, supported by the state of Ohio.
Okay, does anybody from the public have comment on this? Seeing none, public hearing's adjourned.
Thank you.
I apologize for being out of order a little bit, but if anybody wants to address city council under public communication, you must sign in with the clerk. Okay, that clock up there says 7:30. I'm going to call the order the October 17th, 2018 City Council meeting. Would the clerk please read the roll?
Mr. DeLeone.
Here.
Mr. Farrar.
Here.
Mr. Kuhar. Ms. Rosenberg.
Here.
Ms. Shaffer.
Here.
Mr. Sidoti.
Here.
Mr. Turner. Ms. Wallach.
Here.
And Mr. Amrhein.
Here.
Okay, opening remarks, Mr. Turner.
Yeah, I wanted to just commend the staff, council, and the people of this city. We're doing a lot of real positive things, and we have excellent, competent people to do those. We have the will of the council and support of the citizens. And so with that, do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Need a motion for the 3 minutes? Somebody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second, which we're going to go all three, or you want them separated, anybody? All right, all three, Garrett?
Sure.
Who seconded it?
Mike can do it. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Any questions, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and one abstention. Thank you. Audience communication is next. Let me read my little... While the law does not require council to provide time for public comment, we have historically invited the public to make comments, and we appreciate their input. This is a time when the residents and others can comment on matters and concerns them. However, we will not engage in debate, and as the president of council, I reserve the right to end any public comment that are disruptive, embarrassing, harassing, or otherwise objectively. We ask that when you come to the podium, you speak into the mic, that you clearly state your name and address, and that you limit your time to 3 minutes. Would Tara please read the first name?
We only have one, David Wright. Okay.
You decline. All right. Will we go to written communications?
I have written and oral communications.
All right.
Sustainability Commission meeting agenda from October 2nd, 2018, and the minutes of September 11th were received on September 28th. Standing Rock Cemetery meeting minutes of September 13th, 2018 were received September 28th. A letter to the Clerk of Council from our code service provider, which is Walter Drain, regarding them becoming a member of American Legal Publishing, and they will be able to provide us better customer service. That letter was received October 3rd. Civil Service meeting agenda for October 8th was received October 4th. The Health Board agenda and statistical report for October 10th and minutes from September 19th were received on October 4th. Things that were received after the agenda was published was the Civil Service agenda for October 15th, received on October 11th. A letter from a Mr. Joe Suryak regarding the tornado siren decibel levels and length of testing times and our ambulance sirens running after hours. That was received on October 11th. The Portage County Solid Waste meeting minutes from March 28th was received on October 16th. The Parks and Recreation Board packet for October 18th was received on October 16th. An invitation to NOPEC's 2018 General Assembly meeting was received on November 13th, distributed to council this evening, and that was received on the 16th of October. And today we received Standing Rock Cemetery meeting minutes from October 11th. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. City Manager's report, Mr. Amrhein.
I'd like to move items 1 through 10 on the city manager's report.
For a second.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Are there any discussions on the manager's report? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Is there further, Mr. Roller?
No, thank you,
All
Mayor.
right. Standing committees. First committee is the committee of the whole. I need a motion to, I believe, and we have one resolution. Would somebody make for the minutes?
There are no minutes.
There are no
Final
minutes.
minutes.
Well, I think it's
Just the draft.
tonight.
Just one
You
draft.
just authorized it under the city
All right.
manager's report.
Okay, would the clerk read draft number 2018 in title only?
Draft number 2018-118, a resolution appointing John Ryan to the Loan Review Committee and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Farrar.
Good.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
And Mr. DeLeone.
Yes, good, I guess. Is that what you said, Garrett? Good? Yes, good.
I need a motion for adoption.
Move adoption.
Second.
I think it was Roger and Mike. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
And Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Resolution number 2018-118 passes.
Thank you. That's it for the committee of the whole. Community Development, Mr. Kuhar.
Okay. Move
Split
to
those up,
appro-
please.
Pardon me?
Split up the minutes and the action.
Okay. Move to approve the minutes of the October 3rd.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrara. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. One abstention.
Move to one action.
Second.
Who seconded it?
It was Heidi.
Okay.
Did you?
Any discussion?
I've got
I
discussion.
heard somebody else.
Where?
You know, I think we've all agreed that it's worthy to try this, but I think it goes without saying to at least note that one of the issues that we're going to run into is monitoring this. And I think what happens in cases where we haven't gotten prior approval for these types of things, you know, we're expecting people to self-police this project. And I think it's a mistake not to have a permit. It doesn't have to have a fee, doesn't it? But you know, the thing that really upsets citizens is not what we do, it's what we can't do. And, you know, time and time again, when somebody's out of compliance with something, it's the neighbors and the community that suffer while we're trying to find a way to alleviate a problem. And in this case, it's a perfect example where if we can approve the coop prior to it happening, we're going to avoid the situation. And it just goes back to the same old adage every time. And if you don't have time to do it right the first time, how are you going to find time to do it right the second time? And I would just offer that it's a mistake not to have a permit to start this process.
For you people who don't quite understand, he's referring to urban chickens. Am I right?
That's correct.
Who else? Somebody else had their hand up. Nobody else had their hand up? Okay. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-116 in title only?
Draft number 2018-116, an ordinance amending Section 505.19 and enacting Section 505.22 of the codified ordinances of the City of Kent and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Jack. Please call the roll for suspension.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Need a motion for
Move
adoption.
adoption.
Mr. Ferrara, who seconds that?
Second.
Second by Roger. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2018-116 passes.
Okay, would the clerk read draft number 2018-117 in title only?
Draft number 2018-117, an ordinance amending Section 501.13 of the Kent Codified Ordinances titled Civil Offenses to correct and clarify some language regarding fines and procedures and declaring an emergency.
Adoption.
Second.
Second by Jack, first by John.
Suspension?
Move suspension.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Suspension.
It's okay.
Read the roll for suspension.
You got it. Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
And Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Now move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
And Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2018-117 passes.
Okay, thank you. Is there further, Mr. Kuhar?
Thank you and good night.
Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeone.
I'll move the committee meeting minutes of October 3rd, 2018.
Second.
Second. Are there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
One absent. Did you abstain, Tracy?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll also make a motion to action number 1.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrara. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-111 in title only?
Draft number 2018-111, an ordinance rescinding the authorization of the certification of a certain delinquent mowing bill to the county auditor that was placed on the real property tax list in the amount of $1,530 on the property known as 535 Bowman, Kent, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll for suspension.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2018-111 passes.
Thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-112 in title only?
Draft number 2018-112, a resolution authorizing the city budget and finance director and law director or their designees to sign an addendum to an employment contract between the city of Kent and David Ruller dated July 3, 2008, for an extension of the current contract for 5 years and granting 5% pay raise effective June 15, 2018, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
And Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Heidi and Garret, would the clerk please call the roll for adoption?
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Abstain.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
And Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Resolution number 2018-112 passes.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-119 in title only?
Draft number 2018-119, an ordinance authorizing the settlement and release agreement between the City of Kent and Douglas Partners, LLC, et al., and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Garret and Roger. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
And Mr. Farrar?
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Garret and Roger again. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar? Ordinance number 2018-119 passes.
Okay, is there further, Mr. DeLeone?
That's all.
Health and Safety Committee, Mr. Amrhein?
Yes. I'll move the committee minutes from October 3rd.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign,
Abstain.
and one abstention.
And I'll move the one action recommended.
Second.
Second, any discussion on the action? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, would the clerk read draft number 2018-113 in title only?
Draft number 2018-113, an ordinance repealing the City of Kent codified ordinances known as Section 509.10 titled Vagrants and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
John and Roger. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
And Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2018-113 passes.
Okay, is there further, Mr. Amrhein?
No, that's all.
There's nothing under land use tonight. Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
Yes, I'd like to move the committee meeting minutes of October 3rd, 2018.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign,
Abstain.
and one abstention.
I'd like to move the two actions that are listed.
Second?
Any discussion on the two actions? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes. Would the clerk please read draft number 2018-114 in title only?
Draft number 2018-114, an ordinance amending Chapter 937 entitled Use of Public Ways by Service Providers, specifically Sections 937.01, 937.02, 937.03, 937.04, 937.05, 937.06, 937.07, 937.08, 937.09, and 937.10, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second?
Garrett and Jack, please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
And Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Garrett and Roger. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2018-114 passes.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2018-115 in title only?
Draft number 2018-115, a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to accept and support the proposal by the Portage County engineer to participate with the paving of Mogador Road and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Garrett and John, please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner? And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
John and Garrett for adoption. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
And Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Resolution number 2018-115 passes.
Okay, thank you. Is there further, Mr. Sidoti?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Anything under special committee reports? Anything under unfinished business? Under new business, item needing council action or referral, anything? Wow. Schedule future council meetings? You have your hand up?
Comment.
Oh, council comment, Mr. Ferrara? Oh,
Go on,
wait,
who's
ladies first.
No, go on.
Oh,
I like the orange paper. Was that your idea too?
happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Roger.
Actually, all month it's been
Robbins.
orange, yes.
Ms. Robbins, can't you tell?
Is that your comment? All right, now Garrett.
I didn't want to let the moment pass to make a comment on our city manager's new contract that we gave for him, a 5-year renewal. I think it's a great sign of our confidence in our fearless leader. You've done a great job since you've been here. It's been the best thing that Kent has done, is hire you, and year in and year out, you continue to provide excellent service, excellent guidance, and you're a real asset to the community, and I'm really proud of the work that you've done and council's commitment to you by granting you the raise and the extension of work. So congratulations
I
and
would
thank you.
applaud.
Is that it?
That's it.
John?
I just want to say that if the city doesn't take a more active part and reducing the raccoon population that we have living in this city, and there's a lot of raccoons. We won't have to worry about chickens. And that's not a joke, that's in seriousness, because those little devils can get in anything you want to keep them out of, and if there's a chicken, they're going to find it. But we have hundreds of chickens run the streets of Kent at night.
Raccoons.
Raccoons.
We hope not, right, Garret?
Better not be
Raccoons be
chickens.
chasing the chickens. Heidi, you were next.
Yeah, I wanted to say that some of us in council got an opportunity to ride the conference bike in the homecoming parade. That's what, Cleveland Bikes? Cleveland? Yeah,
Cleveland Cycle.
Cleveland Cycle, yeah. And they're out at Madcap, yeah. Anyways, we had such a good time, and it was such an interactive thing, and, you know, I just would recommend that anybody on council, anybody in the audience, try it. It's a great team building experience. It would be family fun, certainly fun to go out, you know, with your friends. I can think of lots of reasons to do this interesting and exciting thing, and it was really interactive with the public too. So, you know, sorry for those of you who couldn't attend, but we had a blast.
Mike, were you next?
Yeah. I just want to say, whoever puts the minutes or the whole meeting on audio on YouTube,
Yep.
Wonderful. I mean, I've got comments from people that say, hey, you know, at least we can listen to it. He said, we may not be able to see anything, but we can listen to everything that goes on. So whoever's involved in that, thank you very much.
Roger.
No, I agree with Mike, I was going to say that, I agree with John. I think groundhogs are another issue that we have. Chase chickens. They don't chase chickens, so it's
They don't
nothing.
eat chickens.
I would like to mention two things. First of all, I also want to thank Dave for all his hard work, and I want to remind everyone that he has served for the last 3 years or 4 years as our safety director. When our safety director retired, we didn't fill that position, and Dave was willing to step up, and I think that we sometimes lose that in the community. He's not only being our city manager, but he's also assumed some additional duties, and that's a significant savings to our community overall. So I want to thank you for doing that, Dave, because it's sometimes a thankless job. Secondly, I think that while I didn't want to put it on a schedule or anything, I didn't want to put it in a committee, but I think that we've worked really hard at trying to shape our One Kent, and we have some things going out there, and we've talked long and hard, and I think that at some point we need to really clarify the process that we want to use. I know that we're looking at adopting a process. I think we need to move ever so cautiously forward, but I think we need to move forward on that. And I think that takes all council. I don't think it's on Dave's shoulders or the administration's shoulders. We made a commitment that we were going to do this, and I think that it's up to council to really share the leadership with our administration, and let's get moving a little quicker on that process. Oh, and lastly, thank you for, Melanie, I don't know where you're at, but thank you for listening to some of the comments we made 2 weeks ago on that initial layout, because I actually took notes of what all our council people suggested, and I saw that there were some changes made, and I think we all appreciate that we're being listened.
Anybody else? Okay, mayor's report. I was going to also comment on the recording. If people don't think we're transparent now, they better get a hearing aid.
Or a computer.
Or a computer. Second of all, happy birthday, John, on the 20th.
Happy birthday.
And
55.
I'm closer than you are. Also, on the 23rd of this month, Heritage Ohio is going to recognize Ron Burbick for the work he has done. I'm going to go attend the award ceremony. I think it'll be deserving of Ron. I don't know whether Ron's going to be able to make it or not, but Michelle Hartman will be there in his place if not. And the other thing I've been working with, or kind of talking with Melanie and Dave, I would like to put some kind of a recognition for the police officers that died in line of duty in the fire department. Maybe putting banners on the Main Street Bridge. The fire department just got done with their week in the police department in sometime in the spring. And I'm asking for a cost for that, so you're all aware of what we're doing. What, Heidi, is this?
We never heard of it.
What?
Who died?
Nobody, it's all the ones that have fallen and doing duty. And that's all I have. Thank you for coming tonight.